Hey everyone, welcome to Info Channel. So my name is Bipin and I'm technical hobbyist who loves exploring different technologies, building small projects and diving into tools that I make learning and experimenting easier and more fun. So this channel is where I share interesting things I have learned, tools I enjoy using, and then the cool little projects I build along the way. So let's get into today's agenda. So in this video, I want to talk to you through one of my favorite platform for data science and machine learning experiment is Kaggle. So we'll talk about what Kaggle is, then why we want to use Kaggle, and what is the difference between like a Jupyter notebook, which is typically you install on your local machine, versus Kaggle. Then we'll talk about the 5 days GenAI intensive course that I did with Google very recently, and then we'll talk about the Capstone project. What is that particular project is all about? What are the models, different models that I used for that project, and then we'll do a quick demo into that. Cool. So let's get into that. So what is Kaggle? So it's a platform owned by Google. It's focused on data science and machine learning. It offers free access to coding environment, data sets, and mainly used for competitions as well. And it is well known for hosting global machine learning challenges with a real world database. It has a strong community where users share code, notebooks, and solutions. So essentially it's like a Wikipedia of the entire machine learning community, as you can say. So why we want to use Kaggle versus the Jupyter notebook that we install typically on locally? So it's a zero setup, right? Like you don't need to install anything on your device. Everything is like a cloud base. Just open the browser and start coding. So free GPU and TPU, so that's the best thing. So great for deep learning without needing powerful local hardware. So you don't need to have a really powerful machine with you. So you can just go online and start using that. Access to the dataset, and as I mentioned that it has a very strong community and growing community. So a lot of people put their own datasets. And which are readily available, that we can download and use it into our notebooks. People do share their notebooks, easy to share your work with other or explore the solutions from the community. So you can have different other notebooks available that you can use. And versioning and collaboration, so you can track the versions of whatever the notebook that you are working on, or you can take someone else's notebook and then create your own version on that, right? So you can collaborate with other people, to improvise their notebook as well. Cool. So let's get into that. So then the next one is so what is the Capstone project is all about, right? So let me start share my screen. So we talked about Kaggle. Let's move on to the 5-day GenAI intensive course. I recently attended this one. So it happened on March 31st and March 31st and April 4th. It was an intensive course, 5 days. So every day we used to get like a code labs. We finished those code labs, and then next day we were talking about some of the challenges with the AI, and different models and different assignments. And then there was a live stream that we talked about different questions and answers. So it was very super informative, very interesting course, I would say, and it was free. And that's the best thing I would say. So we learned about the foundational model, the prompt engineering on a day one. The code lab was there, so finished the code lab, and then we talked about that. On a day two, it was more like an embedding and vector database. The good thing about that course, I say that they made it so easy. Even for me, I'm new into this entire machine learning space, but it was very easy to understand. It was very easy to adopt, and follow along with that. The code labs were very easy, to follow. Very informative, understanding what each step was explained very well into the code labs as well. So on day 3, it was a generative AI agents, followed with the domain-specific LLMs, and then on day 5 concluded on MLOps for generative AI. So there were 4 code labs for 4 days, and the 5th day we talked about the MLOps and then the generative AI on that. So let's get into Kaggle. Kaggle. So this is when you go to kaggle.com, you see you can do the registration if you're signed in. So I already used that. I completed my registration. Excuse me. I completed my registration, and I did the registration using the Google. So I'm just going to sign in with my Google. So this is the dashboard. Once you're into that, you have a lot of. You can see your work on the left-hand panel, but you can go to different competitions. There might be different competitions going around. You can just pick and choose any of the competition. You can see different data sets. As you can see here, there are different data sets. You can have your own data sets as well. You can import different data sets. So this is one, like for example, I imported it from the Canada stats. You can import similarly like that. You can have different models which are available for you, like for the testing purpose. So then once you get, like, you can create your own notebook, and then you can start exploring on that. So the Capstone project was an optional project after that 5 days of intensive Gen AI course. It's an optional. What the Capstone project is essentially that you apply whatever you learn in those 5 days, apply that. So you can create any own projects, right? And then you can basically see how you can improvise that project with applying the knowledge that you learn those 5 days using the Gen AI tools. So the one that I particularly created, I created the Vancouver MLS report. So MLS is a multiple listing services. It's essentially gives you an idea about the real estate market in Canada. The current real estate market is really challenging. Is going through a lot of turbulence, essentially because of many interest rate, and then the tariff challenges from south of the border. So it's quite challenging, and it is overwhelming for users. Those who want to sell the property, those who want to buy the property. So it's quite anxiety is there into the market. So the very first thing, as a typical real estate transaction, you need to have a real estate agent, and then you talk to your real estate agent, and then the real estate agent will consume a lot of that information and then give that information to buyer or seller. What happen often that the real estate agent always get very questions specific to the market, specific to the locality, whether I want to sell my house or I want to buy my house, whether I'm a first time buyer or I'm like an investor. So it's a lot of time the real estate agent try to make a lot of communication on that. Although the real estate agent heavily rely the data which is available into the market, published by the multiple listing services agencies. So they publish the report monthly. Typically March is a very interesting month. It's a spring market. Usually the spring market is a very hot market for real estate transactions. So a lot of buyers and sellers rely onto that March data. So in this project, what we are trying to do, we are basically taking that MLS report published by the MLS Market and Research for the Greater Vancouver area. That includes all Greater Vancouver, Surrey, Delta, Coquitlam, Maple region, and Tri-Cities. So it takes the data, it then consumes the data, gives the information to the user about the report, and then it becomes more interactive, because then the document, the PDF file, essentially we translate that into a vector database, and then you can interact with that with that system. You can ask the question, and then based on the data, the agent will respond back to you. So let's get into that. So what are we going to do? We're going to edit it first. So once you see the Vancouver MLS report, you can start editing. So there are like 4 versions that you have. You can start editing it. Once you edit it, you will have your sandbox now ready. Right, so most of the most of the dependencies are pre-installed, but there are certain specific dependencies that you need to install. So what are the things? So this will tell you what is the current state of your notebook. You can again start the session. I'm going to start the session. It takes a bit of a while, a little bit to start the session, but then we'll talk about the other things. So this is the factory reset. So let's say if you started and then you want to restart it everything again, you can just do the factory reset, and then everything will be starting from the beginning. On this menu bar, you can restart and clear all the cell outputs. So you want to see or you want to regenerate the whole thing. You can restart and run up to the selected cell. So if you select one particular cell, you can say that I want to restart and run on to that particular cell. So I'm not going to go with about like this. So I assume that you are pretty much familiar with the Jupyter Notebook. It's a pretty much same thing, but I'm planning to do another video for Jupyter Notebook, installation of Jupyter Notebook on your local device. So maybe wait for that video as well. But here we are trying to do the installation. So let's do the pip install Google Gen AI. So 1.7.0 is the model that we're going to install. It should be pretty straight and quick. Then we have all the dependencies. So we call all our imports and then call the dependencies. Pretty standard Python program. So one thing that you definitely need to you need to have the Google API key. So there is a documentation that how you can get the Google API key for your application. One thing that I probably need to mention, that when you start your notebook, get the Google API key. You need to be phone verified in terms of having your Google API key, and then make sure that you have go to add-ons, go to the secrets, and then make sure that you have this checkbox checked. So then you have your Google API key loaded. Then the retry policies. So the model might make multiple consecutive calls automatically for the complex query. This will make sure that you are within that particular quota limit for that. So you create a client and apply or give the Google API key to that particular client. So throughout this particular notebook, we will be using the Gemini 2.0 Flash model. So the one way, like I just define the model on top, so then I can just keep referring that model throughout my notebook. So this is the instruction. So this is the where we will start instructing the AI or to the agent that what exactly that the agent should do, right? So what we are telling agent that you are highly skilled real estate summarization specialist, so provide the summary for a user without having much of that knowledge. So anybody is coming and asking you, assume that that person don't have a knowledge about any real estate. So just give that information according to that expectations, and give information in 300 words. So it should not look like an essay, and it should not be another document for the users to read about it, right? So they just give you the report and say that I want to understand more about this particular report. Then we import a few more dependencies. Now these dependencies are basically because we get this report directly from the real estate. So if you see, I'm going to just quickly copy this one, and I'm going to open it here, and I'm going to paste it here. So this is the report looks like. We are not going to go through that. So if you see, there are different graphs, different tables, different charts, and a lot of data to consume. It's a 9-page document, but it gives a lot of information. Again, for a user to understand that information is a bit challenging. I feel it challenging, to be honest. So what we're doing, so we are passing again the pretty standard Python program, nothing fancy. So if you provide the live report, and then you create like a file, sorry, based on the client file upload, and then MIME type. So it's again pretty standard coding, nothing fancy as such in there. And then this is where we say request. It's kind of like a prompt, right? So you say that, could you please summarize MLS report for March 2025, right? And then it uses the function summarize report, gets the request, the one that you passed here, and then it's a generate config, like content config. It gives the temperature. That's a pretty standard, low to stabilize the output, and then we get the response from the model, right? So we define the model. That's a Gemini Flash 2.0. That's the model that we use, and then it's pretty standard. So we pass the request. So this is the request. We pass the MLS report. So this is the report that we generated, so that's the live report, we generated that. And then this is the instruction. So it basically follows the instructions that we have set to that. And then we just, response that, return the response, and then we just mark down. So markdown is basically, it can be neat and clean to understand the response. So it gives the takes away. So highlights, again, sales are down, listings are up. So the sale is down in the real estate market. There are too many listings available. Buyers are still hesitate to make any move on that. Although it's a balanced market at the moment, depending upon overall average, it's a balanced market, because there is a percentage, and if the sale is happening below that percentage, then it considered as a buyer's market. If the sale is happening after that particular threshold, then it's a seller market. Obviously it is a buyer market now. That means more it's in the favor of buyer, but still buyers are hesitant to buy that. It gives you the price trend as well, like what is the current price trend, again based on the report, and then it gives you the information about attached home, right? And in short, it says that the Metro Vancouver market favors buyers with more choices and stable prices, but sale activities remain subdued. So that means still, the market is not that great. So the next one that we use, the Gen AI evaluation. So the Gen AI evaluation is kind of like we are now asking, to evaluate the response that we receive, right, based on certain conditions, based on certain metric definitions that we provide, right? So we give the instructions, the evaluation, the metric definitions, and then the criteria, right? We define that particular criteria, and then we say that, like, based on this particular evaluation or instruction, just give the ratings, and this should be the rating should look like. So 1 is very bad, whereas 5 is very good, right? And then evaluation steps. So your step 1 should be assess the response in aspect of instruction following, whether the instruction that I mentioned here are followed properly, that it's in 300 words and everything, the groundness, conciseness, verbosity according to the criteria. So that means I mentioned that, like, give a response where user don't know anything. So they're just trying to understand what that what that real estate market currently looks like, right? And then score based on the rubric that we define. So let's run this one as well very quickly. So it gives the step 1, the response follows the instructions of summarization of document. Of course, it's definitely summarizes the document. The response is grounded only on the document provided. It's concise and fluent, so it's not going beyond that document and trying to get additional information. So it's well within that particular document and provide the fluent details in a concise manner, as I ask agent to provide that information. So the rating is 5 as my final rating, because the summary follows instruction, is grounded and concise and fluent. So we are happy with that. But if it is not happy, then it will basically gives you like a different rating, and then you need to see whether you need to do some sort of adjustment to that model or to that instruction. So then the next step, that what we're going to do, we just don't want to stop there, right? Like we got the summary, but we need more details now, and that's where often buyer and seller, they keep texting or calling their real estate agent to understand more and more information about it, right? And real estate agent might be dealing with 10 different clients, right? One seller, like one buyer, and according to that they need to provide the response accordingly. So in the next step, what we're doing, so we're going to get the PDF file, and we will be converting that PDF file into the documents, and then we'll feed that information into the vector database. So we're going to use the ChromaDB here, but we're going to install few additional dependencies like PyPDF, LangChain, so text splitter. Although I'm not using LangChain's text splitter because I initially thought maybe using that to split the data into different chunks, but it worked out without doing that, so I probably can get rid of that as well, so it's not an issue on that. So again, a pretty standard LangChain. Again, I'm not using the LangChain text splitter here, but yeah, I mean, I just happen to have it. I was initially thinking to split that data into different chunks. Then what I have done, I'm still figuring it out whether I can just pass the report as is from the live URL, but then I created kind of a data set. So essentially what I have done here, in the so I might have to just go there, but in the data set I imported this MLS report as a data set. So it's basically going through all the pages. As you can see here, I'm just printing all these pages over here. So these are the pages, basically, document 3. You can see all these things going here, right? I don't need to print the document again, which I'm doing the same things, but essentially what I'm doing, that like splitting that each page into its separate document over here, and then the next step, we will be putting that information into the vector database, converting that into the vector database. So it takes few seconds to get it installed. So these are the dependencies, right? The installation of ChromaDB point. You can, I think you can use any of the vector database. There is no restriction as such. But again, as I happen to be very new into this space, I just followed the instruction that I'll learn into the course on that. Now this error is mainly because of there is like a conflict with some of the other dependencies. You can either uninstall and install them, but like I found it, there is no issues with that. We can just simply move ahead with that. So that's not an issue. So it's a good thing. So let's move on from that. So again, we are creating the vector database over here using the Gemini embedded function. So this is where we're going to use the Gemini embedded functions, right? Again, we're going to like retrieve the document, retrieve the query, the model information, right? That's the embedding that we will be using, and let's run that. I think that's run already. So the next one is the actual database. So I'm going to create this database, the vector database, named it as the MLS report data. So the embedded function, again using the Gemini embedded function, and then to the document mode, that's true. Then the Chroma client, passing the DB name and the document. So this is the document that we created up here. So that's the document we created, documents, and that's the one, and we are passing that to our like a vector database. So this is the documents that we're going to pass, and then says like getting the length. So it's 9. So because these are 9 pages, so it created like the count is 9 of that database. So then the next is basically start querying to the database. So let's say, for example, I'm going to give first query like what is the benchmark price for condominium in Lower Mainland in March 2025, right? So that's the one I'm going to give. Again, from the prompt perspective, the prompt is where I can specify any guidance on tone, what topics the model should stick to or avoid, right? So we don't want basically AI to do any hallucination and provide some excess information which might not be relevant to the data or to the question that user is trying to ask, right? So we just make sure that it stick to the point. And then we pass that, right? So we pass the prompt basically to make sure that the prompts are correct, and then the answer ultimately. So just gonna say here, and now if you see this says certainly according to the provided document, the benchmark price for a condominium in the Lower Mainland for March 2025 is 712,000, right? So it gives the benchmark price. But then if I want to ask something else, right? Let's say for example I say, and if I go and ask about which area is more beneficial to buy townhome, for example, right? So I'm going to say that, and again I still make sure that you stick to the point, you don't give any excess information, and it says that the maple tree shows the highest percentage, right? So it gives you the idea. Like say if I'm a buyer or the investor, then I can get more information and say that which area is the most beneficial if I buy like a townhome. So if you see the 10 years, it's 177% appreciation that has given for the townhome for the past 10 years. So that's the benefit. I mean, you can go on and on that. So let's say for instance, even if I go ahead and then if I ask, let's say is it worth buying detached home now in Surrey, for example, right? So let's say I live in Surrey, and it's going to say that whether it's worth buying like a detached home in Surrey. So it still says that, like, okay, so I might have to basically just retrain that and just run it again. Yeah, I'm sorry, but based on the product MLS fact, I'm unable to whether the buying a detached home in Surrey. This document solely contains statistical data on real estate sales in specific regions of British Columbia and does not contain any advice, right? So it doesn't give any advice, right? You should not go and back and tell, oh, because you told me that go and buy a house in Surrey, and then that didn't work out very well, because in the prompt we did mention that if the passage is irrelevant to the answer, you may just ignore it, right? So it's sophisticatedly or diplomatically telling that I'm not the one who can make the decision for you. It's your sole decision. But if you have anything specific data, then you can ask. So I can change the question and say that how is the current detached home market looks like in Surrey, let's say. Okay, I'm going to train it again and I'm going to instruct it again. Let's break down the detached home market in Surrey. Looking at the data provided in March 2025, there are like a 570 detached home listing in Surrey. The percentage of sale, and it's going on. It goes on and on and on. And then, as long as you're asking relevant question to the model, it will give you the exact and like a precise information. It will not help you to make the decision, but it will give you all the necessary information for you to make that particular decision. So that's pretty much just wanted to cover. It's a very short video. I hope you like it, and then I'll publish a few other videos for other area in this space. But yeah, thanks for watching and thanks for being here. Thank you.